Okay, so let's continue with the life cycle cost analysis. So before the break, we have learned that life cycle cost analysis is used to calculate the total cost of a system or a building over the whole life cycle. And the main objective is to compare different alternatives, different building alternatives, different design. And the three major factors would be the cost, which include the initial cost, the operating cost, maintenance costs, and other residual costs. And the second, the study period. And the third one is the discount rate. Okay. So for calculating the life cycle cost, this cost is the present value. Okay, we use present value to so we express all the future costs in terms of the present value so that we can add up all type of costs and compare the total cost for different alternatives. So project-related costs which occur at different points in time over a study period cannot be directly combined in calculating an life cycle cost because the dollars spent in different times have different values to the investor. So today spend $100 and then 2 years later spend another 100. I cannot just add up 100 plus 100 because maybe 2 years later that 100 to me is only $50 to me today. So we need to convert all the future dollars into a present value so that we can add them up. So to accurately combine initial expenses with future expenses, like the annual operation and maintenance costs, the present value of all expenses must first be determined. And only then can the cost be summed to yield a meaningful life cycle cost that can be compared with the life cycle cost of other alternatives. Okay, so we convert the future expense into present value and we add them up for comparison. So present value is the time equivalent value of past, present, or future cash flows as of the beginning of the base year. The present value calculation is the equalizer that allows the summation of initial and future costs. Okay, so through the calculation of present value, then we can add up the initial and the future costs. So like here, the initial expense, okay, the maintenance costs, the energy costs, the replacement costs, and other type of costs, we all convert them into present value. Okay, these are all present value and we can add them up to find the total cost so that we can comparison. Okay, future costs can be broken down into two categories, one-time costs and recurring costs. So one-time costs are the costs that do not occur every year over the span of the study period. Okay, so maybe it just happened on the 5th year of the building operation, or maybe just in the 2nd year. Okay, so just occur once or occur several times, but it is not repetitive. Okay, so recurring costs are the costs that occur every year over the span of the study period. So most operating and maintenance costs are recurring costs. So you need to pay for the energy fees every year and the maintenance costs every year. But for replacement, okay, maybe some equipment replacement, some component replacement, maybe you just need to pay for, okay, maybe every 5 years, okay, not every year, okay, for every year, recurring costs. So only several times over the study period, then it is the one-time cost. To simplify the life cycle cost analysis, all recurring costs are expressed as annual expenses incurred at the end of each year. So here it means that for the energy costs, okay, actually we need to pay every month. But to simplify the calculation, we just assume that the whole year energy cost will be paid at the end of that year. Okay, this is just to simplify our calculations. And the one-time costs are incurred also at the end of the year in which that one-time costs occur. Okay, so you need to pay for a certain amount of replacement of a system component. So maybe you paid it in the middle of the year. But for life cycle cost analysis, we assume it all happened at the end of that year. Okay, so this is just to simplify the calculation. Okay, to determine the present value of future one-time costs, the following formula is used. So this is just the formula for the compound interest, right? So AT is the amount of one-time costs that you need to pay at the Tth year. Okay, so if T is 2, okay, if T is 2, then it means that at the end of the second year, you need to pay an amount of AT, maybe for equipment replacement. Okay? And your discount rate is D. So the present value of AT, okay, at the end of the second year, you need to pay AT and the present value. So it means that if you need to pay today, then this would be the amount. Okay, so this is the present value of this AT one-time cost. Okay, so this is the simple equation that we use to calculate the total amount when you have the compound interest. Okay. So for example, a replacement cost of 1,000 incurred at the end of year 5. Okay, so I know that at the end of year 5, I need to pay for $1,000 for replacing an equipment or replacing a component of the equipment. And the discount rate is 3%. Okay, 3% discount rate. Then the present value will be $800, $862.6. So we put it into the equation in the previous slide. Okay, at the 5th year, you need to pay 1,000. Okay, 5th year, and this is the discount rate. So this future expansion or future expense cost will equal to a present value of $862.6. So it means that to you, paying $1,000 at the end of the 5th year is the same as paying $862 today. Okay, it's the same to you. All right. So how about a recurring cost? So a cost that will happen every year. So to determine the present value of future recurring costs, we may use this equation. Okay, this is a more complicated equation, but you don't need to memorize. Okay, you will be given if you are asked to do present value calculation in the test. Then this equation or all equations will be given. Okay, so AO is the amount of recurring costs that you need to pay every year. Okay, how many years? N. Okay, N is the number of recurring years. You need to pay AO amount of money every year for 10 years. Then N is 10. And D, the discount rate. Okay, your earning power, the discount rate. Okay, an annual maintenance cost of $1,000 over 5 years. So at the end of the first year, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth year, every year you need to pay for $1,000. You need to pay for $1,000. And discount rate, again, 3%. So the present value of all these $5,000 paid at different times in the study period will be $4,579.7. So we may use this equation to calculate $1,000 that you pay for every year for 5 years with a discount rate of 3%, then this is the amount. Or you may use the first equation. You may use this equation to calculate the present value of a one-time payment, $1,000. So $1,000 divided by 1 plus 3%, and in the fifth year, it will equal to 862.6. And for the fourth year, okay, here it becomes 4. Then it is 888.5, and then for this one, this becomes 3, and then for this one, this becomes 2, and then for this one, it becomes 1. So you have these. So if you add up all these values, you have the same value as you calculate from this equation. Okay, so just the same numbers. Okay. So we may use this equation to calculate the present value of recurring costs. Okay, the costs that happen every year. Okay. Okay, next, adjusting for inflation, 通胀. So inflation reduces the purchasing power of the dollar over time, and deflation increases it. So 通縮 deflation, 通脹 inflation. So in life cycle cost analysis, future costs are represented using constant dollar, which indicates costs at different times. If there is no change in the price due to inflation or deflation. So in the earlier slide, okay, so $1,000 for the first year, and then also $1,000, also $1,000, also 1,000, and 1,000. It is because for this calculation, we assume that there is inflation or deflation. So today, you pay $1,000 for the energy. And 5 years later, you also pay for $1,000 for the energy because the inflation is there is no change to the inflation. Okay, but in fact, there is inflation or deflation, right? So we have to calculate the real discount rate. So the real discount rate will reflect the real earning power of the invested money, not only the rate of general inflation. Okay, so we include, so this real discount rate should include the nominal discount rate and also the general inflation. So see if your earning power can catch up with the inflation. Okay, so if your earning power is larger than the inflation, then the D value will be a positive value. But if your earning power is less than the inflation, then this D will be a negative value. Okay. So for life cycle cost analysis, D should be positive because money spent today is worth more money that you spend in the future. Okay, so D should be a positive value. Few commodities have prices that change at exactly the same rate of general inflation year after year. If the nominal rate of price escalation for a particular commodity is different from the general rate of inflation, then a real rate of escalation should be computed. So this rate of escalation is the particular system or particular is the increase, is the price increase of particular system. Okay, so maybe you are buying a lamp. Oh, okay, not okay, maybe not lamp. Maybe for the labor cost. Okay, so the labor cost is getting higher than the inflation. Then you need to calculate the price escalation. Okay, the cost of a particular commodity with price escalation as at some future point in time t can be calculated using the real price escalation rate. So for example, a replacement cost of 1,000 today, which escalates at a real rate of 1%. So 1% greater than the general inflation. Then it will cost $1,105 10 years later. Okay. So this is just an explanation to what is this E. Okay, this E is the percentage of price escalation larger than the inflation rate. Okay, so something or some prices may increase faster than the inflation rate. Then we need to add a price escalation rate. Okay, so if we include the price escalation rate to the equation that we used earlier, then the equation will be these two. Okay, these two equations in the yellow box. And please note that this D is the real discount rate. Okay, earlier we have this equation. Okay, this D is the real discount rate, which have already considered the inflation. Okay, so this D is the real discount rate that reflect the earning power and also the general inflation rate. Okay, so on this slide, apart from your earning power, apart from the inflation, we also want to include the price escalation. So for one-time costs that do not occur every year over the span of the study period and changes from year to year at a constant escalation rate, the present value of the future one-time cost can be calculated by the following formula. Okay, so this E is the percentage of price escalation larger than the inflation. So some particular price could be getting more and more expensive and the rate is faster than the inflation rate. Then you can add this E. Or maybe some equipment is getting cheaper and cheaper. Then this E will be a negative value. Okay, like what? Like the computer. Okay, so the same configuration of computer today be actually in the future, that same configuration will be cheaper. Okay, because we have more and more advanced technology. So today's my computer, maybe it is quite good, but maybe after 2 years, it is a very old model. Then the price will be cheaper. In that case, this E will be a negative value. Okay. For recurring costs that occur every year over the span of the study period and changes from year to year at a constant escalation rate, the present value of the future recurring costs can be calculated by the following formula. Okay, so just this is for the one-time cost, and this is for the recurring cost. And once again, we may add this E if the price could be cheaper or more expensive compared to the inflation rate. Okay, so maybe it seems to be very complicated, so let's take a look at an example. Okay, suppose you want to know the present value of a AC compressor that you expect to replace in 15 years. If it were replaced today, the price would be $5,000. Okay, $5,000 you pay today, then you can replace the compressor. Due to advanced manufacturing process, you expect the price of the compressor will increase at a rate 2% lower than the general price inflation. Okay, 2% lower than the general price inflation. So it means that the compressor will be getting cheaper. Okay, cheaper, or it will not increase that as fast as the inflation. Okay, slower than the inflation. Okay, 2% lower. And your real discount rate is 3%. So this 3% is D, and this 2% is E. Okay, so the present value can be calculated from this equation. Okay, this equation, one-time cost only in the 15 years. Okay, so you put it into this equation and you have $2,370.3. So 15 years later, paying $5,000 means today you pay $2,370.3. Okay. Estimating costs for life cycle cost analysis. Okay, so now is the how we know the concept of present value, we know what is discount rate and the escalation rate. So how exactly can we do the life cycle analysis? So the first step in the completion of a life cycle cost analysis of a project alternative is to define all the initial investment costs of the alternative. So what is the construction cost? What is the maintenance cost every year? What is the energy cost every year? And then any replacement costs, and we list out all the costs over the study period. There are numerous costs associated with acquiring, operating, maintaining, and disposing of a building or building system. Building-related costs usually fall into the following category. Okay, initial costs, which include the land acquisition, the construction, the renovation, and the equipment costs. And the second, fuel costs, which include EW, energy, water. So the operational expenses of energy, water, and other utilities. Okay, just like for our home, I need to pay for the electricity and the water bills and also town gas. So these are my utility bills. So E and W is the fuel costs. Operation, maintenance, and repair costs. So these are not about the energy. So non-fuel operating costs. the replacement cost, replacement of the light bulb, okay, replacement of the air conditioning, replacement of some equipment components. So these are replacement of the building services system. And the residue values, you may resell some of the disposable equipment. So resell or salvage values or disposal costs. Okay, so apart from the values, maybe you need to pay for someone to take away these kind of rubbish. So this is disposal costs. So the life cycle cost will be the investment cost plus the replacement cost minus the residue cost plus the energy, water cost, and operation, maintenance, and repair costs. Okay, so you convert all these costs into present value and then add up the total. That is the life cycle cost. Okay, so all the above costs should be identified by the cost amount. How much? Okay, how much is the investment cost? How much is the energy cost? How much is the replacement cost? And you also need to identify the year that these costs have to spend. Like for the replacement cost, at which year? The 5th year, the 10th year, or when? So you need to identify all the years of these costs. Okay, and whether the costs are recurring. So maybe for energy and water costs, we need to pay every year. And for the other, only in some particular years. Okay. Example 1. We are comparing a conventional HVAC system. So HVAC, H, heating, V, ventilation, AC, air conditioning. So HVAC is the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. So we are comparing a conventional HVAC system with an alternative that includes several energy-saving features. So the system with the lower life cycle cost will be accepted as the cost-effective system. All the initial investment are assumed to be incurred at the end of the study period. Okay? So 2 systems that we are selecting. The base case is the conventional HVAC system, and the alternative is an energy-saving system. Okay, energy-saving design, and the study period 20 years. The real discount rate 3%. So this 3% include your earning power and also the inflation. All costs escalate at the same rate of general inflation. Okay, same rate of general inflation, and therefore E will equal to 0. Okay, so for this example, all costs escalate at the same rate of general inflation. Okay, so the prices will increase at the same rate of inflation, and therefore E will be 0. All right. So for the base case, these are the costs. Initial investment costs. So we need to pay for this one in day 1 or in the first year. And this is the replacement cost that we need to pay for at the end of the 12 years. Okay, so at the end of the 12 years, and this initial cost we need to pay in day 1, and we have the residue value 3,500. It is the residue value, so it is negative. Okay, it is a negative $3,500. And then recurring, these are recurring, annual. So these 2 are recurring costs happen every year. Okay, so $20,000 and $7,000 for operation and maintenance. Okay, so we have these. Day 1, 12 years, and negative residual values at the end of the 20 years, and 20,000 recurring, 7,000 recurring. So these are all the causes, and we have identified at which year or which item is recurring. Okay, so we put them into the equations. So for the initial investment, we need to pay in day 1. So this is already the present value. And for the capital replacement, it will happen at the end of the 12 years. And the real discount rate is 3%. So this is the present value of 12,000. So paying $12,000 at the end of the 12 years is the same as paying $8,417 today. Okay? And the residual value. So 20 years later, you get 3,500. Is the same as you get $1,938 today. The electricity costs and the operation and maintenance costs, these are recurring costs. So these costs you have to pay every year over the 20 years. So we use this equation, 3% of real discount rate. Okay, 3% of real discount rate and 20 years. You need to pay annually for 20 years. So this is the total amount. So you add up all these value, then this is the life cycle cost for the conventional HVAC system, including the initial investment, the replacement cost, the electricity cost, and the operating and maintenance cost. And this is minus, this is negative value, okay? So we add all these up and minus the residual cost, so we have the life cycle cost for the conventional HVAC system. Okay? So how about the alternative? So these are the relevant cash flows. Okay, so 110,000 initial investment costs, day 1. So you need to pay this amount in day 1, and then for the replacement, also on the 12 at the end of the 12 years. Okay, this payment and the residual value, once again, it is a negative value. And the annual electricity and the annual operating and maintenance costs. So just the same calculations, we put them into the equations, and this is the life cycle cost value. And this life cycle cost is a present value. So if you need to pay all these amount, okay, for this one, day 1, for this one at the end of the 12 years, and then you get this money 20 years later, and you need to pay this amount every year for 20 years, then it means, or the total amount is the same as you pay this amount today. Okay? So by these equations, by these calculations, you can compare the present value of this energy saving alternative with the base case. So 511,000 compared to 429,000. Okay, so we know that this is more cost effective. Okay? So this is how we do the life cycle cost analysis. So first of all, we list out all the charges, all the costs, and when will these occur, whether it is a one-time cost or recurring cost. And then we figure out the discount rate or any price escalation rate. Then we put them into the equations, add up all the present value. Then you have the life cycle cost. Okay. Okay, then we have another example. Suppose the initial cost of example 1 base case is to be phased in during the 2-year planning and construction period instead of being charged to the project as a lump sum at the beginning of the study period. Okay, the study period will be extended for 2 years. So it means that instead of paying that amount of installation cost in day 1, we need to pay before the building can be occupied. Okay, we need to pay 2 years earlier. So we have a 2-year planning and construction period. So you need to pay 2 years earlier for the construction or the initial cost. So the study period will be extended by 2 years to 2 years. Furthermore, suppose the useful lives of the two systems are different. Okay, for the conventional case, for the base case, the useful life is only 15 years. But for the energy saving system, it lasts longer, okay, 20 years for the alternatives. A substantial portion of the base case system will need to be replaced at the end of its useful life 15 years at a cost of $60,000. Okay, to prolong its useful life to at least 20 years. So it means that after 15 years, the system will be or will need to be disposed. Otherwise, you pay $60,000 to replace some essential component, then you can extend its useful life to 20 years. Okay, so however, this replacement will increase its residual value to $20,000 at the end of the study period. Okay, so you pay $60,000 for replacement so that you can extend the useful life to 20 years. And at the end of the 20 years, the residual value will be $20,000. Okay. So finally, the electricity cost is now assumed to increase at a rate 1% higher than the general price inflation. So the electricity cost will increase faster than the inflation. Then E will equal to 1%. Okay. So in this example, the price or the initial investment will be charged in 2 installments. So you pay 2 times, the first time at the end of the first year and the second time at the end of the second year. Then the building is occupied. So you need to pay for the electricity costs every year for 20 years. So that is up to the 22nd year. And for the operation and maintenance, also $7,000 every year for 20 years. And at the end of the 12 years, that is at the end of the 14th year, okay, after 12 years of service, you need to pay for $12,000 for replacing the fan. Otherwise, the fan cannot operate anymore. Okay, and you need to pay for $60,000 $20,000 for plant replacement so that the plant can last until can last for 20 years of service, so until the end of the 22nd year. And the residual value will increase to $20,000 at the end of the study period. Okay, and the escalation rate is 1%. So this is E is 1%. All right, so these are all the costs. 2 installments for the initial cost and the recurring costs, replacement costs, and the residual costs. Okay, so we put them into the equation. So now we have 2 installments. For the first installment, we will pay not in day 1, but in the end of the first year. So 1 will be N, or time T should be 1. And we have the real discount rate. And the second installment, we will pay in the end of the second year. So T will be 2. And replacement fees happen on the 14th and the 15th year. So this is because this fan has to be replaced after 12 years of service. And the plant have to be replaced after 15 years of service. Okay. So on the 14th years, on the 17th years, and this is the real discount rate. The residual value, 20,000. So we will get 20,000 at the end of the 22nd year. So 22nd, and the real discount rate. For the electricity costs, it will happen every year for 20 years. So starting the 3rd years. So the annual cost, this is E, the escalation rate, and this is D, 0.03, 3% real discount rate. And this is the first year, and it happened for 22nd year. So this is to minus. So if it happened for 22nd year, then this is the amount, but it starts in the year 3, by the end of the 3rd year. So we use this to minus this one. Okay, and for the operation and maintenance, once again, it will happen in year 3. Okay, in the end of the 3rd years, and I think it should be reverse like this. Okay, so this is the how to say, so the electricity costs and the operation and maintenance costs will be, we need to pay these costs for every year starting the year 3. So it means the recurring costs from year 1 to year 20, or I should say from year 3 to year 22 will equal to the recurring cost from year 1 to year 22 minus, okay, minus the recurring cost from year 1 to year 2. right? The recurring costs that we need to pay annually from year 3 to year 22 will equal to the recurring cost that we need to pay from year 1 to year 22 minus the recurring cost from year 1 to year 2. So we need to use this, okay, 22. We use this component to minus this component, okay, this component to minus this component. Then we have the recurring cost from year 3 to year 22nd. Okay, so this is the total life cycle cost for the base case. And for the alternative, so the difference will be the earlier investment, 2 installment, and then the same fan replacement, the same residue value, and we do the calculations. So once again, I think these not much change on just these number of years, okay, the year of occurrence. These are changed, and once again, it should be the other way around. Okay, so the second 22nd years and then minus the second years. So we have the total life cycle cost. Okay, so which one is lower? So still, the energy saving design is having the lower total life cycle cost. Okay. So any questions? We have finished all the PowerPoint slides. Okay, let's take a break of 5 minutes. And I know we have explained many different equations and many new terms. So during the break, maybe you can have some time to digest these content. Okay, what is the present value and what are the difference between different equations? So after the break, we can study the tutorial questions.